Harness Players Podcast back on In the Money Media. I am growing more insane by the day, but I also go by Ray Cotolo. And I'm joined as always here on the Harness Players Podcast by my trusty cohort, Mr. Mikee P, Michael J. Prebozy. No one really knows what the A and J. I mean, the J comes before the A. You have this weird thing about it being silent that you don't even think you want to put it in on your license, your registration, on all of your important documents that you're going to need in the coming months. But we're here to focus on something a little bit more chipper. The opening night, I guess, is probably a more appropriate term for Century Mile. 6:15 p.m. post time Mountain, the first race goes. That means, Mike, for us East Coasters, this is going to be getting started right around the time that SVU starts rolling.
I don't watch SVU, but what I do watch is I guess, Western Canadian harness racing. And we're back to Century Mile now. So Century Down's done. Unfortunately, Fraser is not coming back to us. So got some Century Mile kicking back up for you. Some big fields, hopefully some nice pulls. And, some sequences that we can dig into. I do think that this is an excellent sequence that if you can catch it, which is not easy, if you can catch it, you can make some money.
Yeah, and Century Mile is enigmatic purely because you get these Alberta horses, which, I mean, we're not going to be rude in saying this, but also we're going to acknowledge the truth. These aren't your horses racing at the Meadowlands. These aren't your horses racing at Mohawk. These are, for the most part, lower class, cheaper horses, but they're racing over this huge track. Century Mile has one of the longest stretches in North America, and that is what, to me, makes this a fairly compelling product, because a lot of times when you have these horses that can be pretty inconsistent and you throw them into the Wild West of trying to just stay straight for as long as possible, you can really get some strange outcomes, some profitable outcomes, but it comes back to the exact thing you said. If you can catch it. Let's dive right in. We're going to be focusing on some real late night action. 8:56 p.m. Mountain, the projected first post for the start of the Pick 4 sequence. That starts in race number 8. It's a filly and mare claiming pace event. $15,000 the tag, $8,900 the purse. Inside of this kickoff leg, I believe it's a 20-cent minimum for this Pick 4. Do you remember off the top of your head? I think it's the same as most other tracks, or is it $1? Yeah,
I'm 20-cent minimums at Century Mile, I believe. I know Century Downs has taller minimums, which obviously very favorable for the horse player. But 20-cent minimums, some people like. Obviously, I would be playing it for a higher multiple here in this late Pick 4. And we have a lot of races tonight. We have 11 going. So you're going to have plenty of time to kind of see how the track is playing as they got back to Century Mile. And, for people that like mile track racing, you don't have to deal with the half mile type problems where horses, kind of get stuck in, shuffled. You mentioned a long stretch. Well, horses can get out. If you're the best, you should be able to navigate that mile track. And that certainly is a positive for a lot of these. I think that the 9 Goodbye See You Later is a horse that I'm interested in, especially off a drop in here. 3-1 morning line. Outside post, yes, but this horse has plenty of class, has made money this year. If you look, I mean, this horse has made $85,000 so far this season. So I do think that this one gets this drop. And there's a lot of horses coming in from claimers. You have a couple 3-year-old fillies in here that have made money, but that's certainly a step up in class. Anything that's going to drop from the preferreds here into this condition is going to be tough. And I do think that if you look back, this horse is fine over the mile track. You get the outside post, should help the price. So I think is a definite must use and an A for me in this race. But I could see the 7 also. CF Saving Grace has been racing very well. Certainly is in form, has come up the condition ladder. And those numbers are 3, 4, 6 type races, shows speed. It's just sharp right now, and I think it's going to be forward. You got Dave Kelly and the bikes, and one of the top trainers and drivers here on these circuits. So those would be probably my first. I think those 2 would be the ones I would want to try to get this Pick 4 kicked off with.
Yeah, I think the board is going to play much differently than the morning line of this race, since Rise and Star is 9 to 5. Probably just because of all the ones on the page. Comes from a hot barn in Travis Ellis. But the thing that really stood out to me, again, it's no offense to James Youngquist, but Mike Hennessy was driving this horse for all of her last few starts, and now he's hopping on to a Nate Sobey sophomore inside of this race, and made me change my mind coming out of the Princess Stakes, Alberta Sire Stakes event that she won. I know you probably wouldn't be on a type like this because it's a 3-year-old against older, but for me, I'm kind of seeing that it's later in the season. She seems to be in form coming to the mile track, gets a good draw. I see some appeal. If made me change my mind is maybe, like a third or fourth choice in the betting fray. Goodbye. See you later on the class. I always just have a hard time on class drops like this. Picks up Terry Kaufman. I don't really have too good of a read on what he brings to the table inside of the sulky. Probably doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but I don't buy that 3-1 morning line. I feel like that horse could probably be a huge favorite. So I might lean 5. I definitely do agree on the 7 CF Saving Grace. It's kind of tricky to read those track on 2 lines. I think through the card, you'll get a sense of how either overbet or underbet these horses are. Because if you remember, Mike, a few shows ago when we had Murray Slough on, he mentioned that they hand time the fractions of that track. The final time's the only thing that's done by the teletimer. So there's some liberties potentially in these final quarters and things like that may be flashier or not when they go to a track like Century Mile. CF Saving Grace, either way, seems to really like racing on the mile track, can trip out. Those are all benefits, I feel like, inside of a race like this. So I'd probably be 5-7. Again, I understand the 9. Don't make me talk you off the 9 because I'm being stubborn on a class dropper. But I proceed with caution, especially if she ends up being like 4-5 inside of this race, given the class drop.
She does like to win, though. She's had 14 wins the last 2 years. I mean, so you can't fault that record there. She's, puts herself in the mix, and she likes to win races. So that's one thing. And certainly 24 starts last year, 24 this year. So consistent performer, shows up a lot, gets that drop. When horses like this drop, I'm more interested because this is the horse that kind of makes their bread in these kind of condition races. And then maybe not quite up to that preferred level, but whenever you get that drop, it's all systems go.
It's certainly whiplash then when you go to the second leg of this pick 4, race number 9. How about some horses that are very, very scared to win? Looking down this page, and again, thinking about just the mechanics of how Century Mile works, there are a lot of horses in this field that come that final quarter of a mile, they're just kind of sputtering their wheels. I believe did you catch Disco Dancer in that August 27th race when he was 17-1, or am I making that up?
Yes.
Yes, and that was a race I remember we were talking about just being completely open, but I guess first things first to lead you in. You liked him then, was kind of even at the track on 2. Do you think that maybe this horse is probably going to be overbet on the move to Century Mile?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I do think that this one plays pretty well in this race, especially if it can be more forward. Again, if you look at this race, it's interesting. All straight 3-year-olds, 9 horses, all 3 years old that show up in this race, and it's numbers of 2, it's 10 claimers. This is pretty much the bottom level here for these types. So the races can be wide open, but I do think that the 5 Disco Dancer is in a little better form than most of these, especially if you look back to that August 27th line from that 9-hole there at Century Downs, showed up with a win. And then, last time, yes, the line doesn't look favorable, but that kick home 27-3 there. Kelly Hort back on, you get the right post. I do think should be forward again, and maybe he's just going a little better than most of these right now. The 7 will take money, though. Outlaw, perfect timing. Just very limited starts, and the 2 starts that this horse has had have been solid. I mean, debuted with a 3rd-place finish and finished up in that final quarter to be 3rd, and then a speed win there, track on 2 of September the 10th. I would imagine this horse will be sub-even money in this race, but hard to fault the form so far. Definitely underexposed compared to most of the other ones in this race. I can see the 2 also, Seesaw Dale. Now, this one, again, these are all the horses that are very low on morning lines that are racing better than most of the other ones. Has shown speed, has had tough trips. At least is trying, is going forward in races now, is ultimately tiring a lot of the time, but you inside draw here. Maybe this one trips out compared to some of the others. So I probably would need to use those 3, 2, 5, 7 there. I know it's a little chalky, but one of those 3 wins this race.
I can't really use Disco Dancer. And my qualm with C. Doug Dale, when you look at those lines, this horse just reads to me like a textbook hanger, which maybe on a smaller track you can work out the kinks.
Who else do you use, though? Who else do you like?
But that's the thing. Like, I still will use the 2, but I almost want the horse more as a B than an A, because I feel like this horse loses more often than he wins, just given his style. The 7, I think, could be sneakier than we give him credit for, not just because, he's unexposed, but you look at how he raced. The first start, that's a textbook primer line, if you've ever read one. Got a really nice trip, finished strongly, followed that, moving to the bigger track with a win at 1-9 by 3 lengths. Well held
here. I mean,
yeah, well held. So like, there's also a part of me that feels like this could be a gotcha race in a way, where if you're spreading, you're probably misallocating the equity on your ticket. You very well could probably just get through on the 7, as disappointing as that might sound. The only horse that price-wise kind of intrigues me is Shady Roan. And part of that's because whenever we go to Century Mile, Dave Kelly, he just really knows how to drive this track. So I always do kind of elevate his horses a little bit. But again, this is one who's coming off of track on 2 times, where the finishes might not necessarily be as strong as they look. But as I mentioned, how these horses kind of sputter at the end, I like that Shady Roan is passing horses. And over that long stretch, depending on what kind of what version of the 7 shows up here, Shady Roan should be able to pick up some kind of piece, maybe even the largest piece if the 7 fully doesn't show up. But I'm being realistic. I think the 7's probably a lone A here. 1 is a B, and probably a solid exotic use inside of this race. I feel like it's probably better to get more creative in the later races, don't you think?
It is, and they're big fields. And again, these horses are switching circuits. So, I mean, there's things to, kind of maybe discern from there also. Maybe some horses like favor some tracks over the others and things like that. The circumstances are different here. So that can lead to prices. That can lead to some surprises there. I understand what you're saying here on the 7. I was more, you get this level of horse, the fact that they show up here and this horse has raced well so far. It's natural progression, but to take 1-9 shots on these 10 claimers, numbers of 2 types, I think is a very risky proposition.
And again, I understand that too. Like I said in the first leg, don't fully listen to me if you have different instincts. But if I'm right, I'm right. Let's move on to the third leg, race number 10. Speaking of getting creative, Mike, we could be confronted with another strong favorite in the 6, Titanic Hanover. This one here from Mike Hennessy and Justin Curry. Getting back on Lasix. Given how these first 2 legs have gone, are you more inclined to use, or are you more inclined to try and beat?
I mean, the problem is that this one was claimed for 10,000 on August the 23rd, and look at the races since. I mean, they stepped up off of that and raced very well on the front, and then tried a big stakes race, and I'm sure they probably had that in mind. And the horse was favored in there and was sent forward, now ultimately tired, but now gets back with the friends here, back to that 10 claiming level. I think is going to be tough to beat. Now it's amazing. Carvin Credit found a couple wins there. I mean, that horse was 1 for 23. The last 2 wins at track on 2 up that record, made him look a little better, but I'm not sure that I want him in here. I just think Titanic Hanover is a must use in the race, but as a price, maybe the 8, I'm a Party Boy. You get Nathan Sobey here now. Shows up off a nice big win there at 6.5 lengths, kicking in 27 at track on 2 on September the 14th. This one's sharp. I mean, it's been in the exacta the last 6 starts and having a really nice year so far. So this one, I think, could be forward, could be ignored, maybe gets that trip behind Titanic Hanover. I imagine is going to be on the front in this race and is going to be really, probably 1-9, 1-5 in here. Probably needs a trip, but you're definitely going to get separation if you can get I'm a Party Boy down. I think he probably has the best chance to beat the favorite.
I'm maybe getting creative. I feel like Titanic Hanover is beatable inside of this spot, and I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this, Mike. If we look over to the page, you notice frighteningly absent number of 1s and a frighteningly present number of 2s.
Yes, that's true.
On the finish. 1 for 14 this season. This horse, even at Century Downs, in the 10,000 claimers, the numbers of 2 to 4s and other races where some of these other horses have performed well in, he's short at the finish of the race. And I'm just inclined to think on the larger track at Century Mile that he could just be a money sink. And so I feel like he's a really good horse to go against.
One point to make, though, and I hate to interrupt you, but this horse was claimed back in August. So, I do think you maybe could look at this horse a little bit differently since the claim, and they have stepped the horse up in both of those starts. So maybe he's a little bit of a different horse, and he's back on Lasix. I mean, there are changes that could eliminate some of those thoughts, especially since this horse has changed hands.
Sir, that's true. There's more upside because of that. However, just given the short price that he's going to be, I feel like there's value then in potentially underplaying that, just given how the horse has generally performed, even for a good barn in Chris Lancaster. I mean, he's going into a nice stable in Justin Curry, but how many points or whatever term you want to use that's going to level the horse up, I feel probably negligible. I do agree with you on I'm a party boy. Just kind of tough. Again, with him coming from track on 2 to fully transpose those performances to something like even Century Downs or Century Mile. But even at Century Downs in the 10,000 claimers, this horse was good. He was able to go pillar to post. He was able to chase down horses. He just likes to race. And those are the types of horses that you want to bet on. You don't want to bet on horses that once they leave the gate, they want to go home. You want to bet on horses that want to find the winner's circle. And 10-1 on the morning line. I don't know if he's going to play as that in the multis, because really it depends on just how sharp the money is inside of the pools. But I feel like he's probably going to provide value no matter what inside of the pick 4 sequence. And I mentioned Dave Kelly again, and I'm showing a bit of my bias here. I do have Jingle in my pocket as a probable horse too, because looking at Century Downs, the horse just closes ground, and I'm just operating with the thought in mind that horses moving to the longer stretch who have not had an opportunity to close ground could have an opportunity to thrive. Because let's remember what Murray has also told us in our Century Downs shows. Unless you make a 3-wide blitz up the backstretch, you don't gain ground on the turns. You don't close ground at Century Downs. Century Mile has a whole different dynamic at play that could cater to these horses' different racing styles that they weren't able to, that didn't allow them to thrive at Century Downs. And 8-1 on Jingle in my pocket, I think provides some value. Otherwise, I'm in agreement with you. I think the 1 and 2 are probably over bet. Hopefully they're takeout reducers, but again, given how chalky I am in some of the earlier races, I gotta go against the 6 inside of this spot if I really have that opinion. And I feel like this payoff leg, Mike, could really be the same one that Disco Dancer was able to pull off an upset in. You might have to go digging deep to try and find the winner of this 11th race. Condition claiming pace, $5,000 the tag, $4,400 the purse, 9 go postward here. You can see merits, and I got to say this name slowly because we're recording this deep in the AM. Gonna Funk You Up does make sense inside of a spot like this. But again, morning line favorite. You have a Travis Ellis horse to the inside coming in off a 6 scratch. There are doors open for you to take some chances here.
Yeah, and I'm looking at prices. I agree. I think the one is I don't never want to take a 5 claimer off a 6 scratch. I don't care that the barn's 30%. You have to try to beat those kinds of horses. I think you could spread a little bit here. The 4 shots fired is interesting. Just has shown speed and gets back to the 5 claiming level, but gets back to the mile track here. So I do think that has been bet the last 2 starts. Outside post last time, tough trip. Really never saw the inside. So maybe a better trip here, and you get that 8-1 morning line. I think worth the use. The 5 is a price that I'm interested in. Triple Lane Mister. This horse is 21 morning line, and you get Lasix back on. Now the form's poor, but has a win at Century Mile in 2024. So limited starts this year. Gets back to the big track. It is a 9-year-old, but 11 lifetime wins, and I do think getting back to the big track should suit, and you get that big price. So I think worth the use there. You mentioned the 6, and I think the 6 is probably a use from off the pace. That one has a lot more shares than wins also, but it is Dave Kelly and an improved line last time, worth the use. And then maybe the 8 Chief Saratoga would be the final one that I would use in the race. Nice start 2 back there at track on 2. No chance last time the way the race shaped, and did try from the outside, but really very limited. But this is maybe a better spot here. Has 30 lifetime wins. Only 1 win, though, each of the last 2 years. But again, you get that price. This driver, too, he's 0 for his last 37. So if you want to price in a last, there's one that maybe could be his turn. This horse is 12 years old, but just another one I'd maybe throw in probably more of a B type.
I'm surprised you and I both feel the 5 is a probable price in this race. The thing that really just grabbed me is being back on Lasix, because I don't think they have Lasix at track on 2 is one of the reasons why that is the case. And then the races where he was on Lasix, he broke stride in both of them. So I'm being incredibly forgiving, which I think should also speak to the depth of this field. This is a type of horse I remember, like when I would go to Penn National, I'd be looking at the 5,000 maiden claimers where it's all horses that have 20 starts and they maybe only make one move a race, and you really learn how to cut your teeth and how to actually handicap horses looking at those types of races. And you have to be incredibly forgiving of these animals inside of these instances. So maybe the Lasix helps out. And you mentioned the Century Mile win, but also he got 3 wins last year. So I feel like even if his 9-year-old season hasn't gone to form, the races at track on 2, you could see that there's ability there. And the way that the horse was quitting, you can probably presume there's bleeding involved. So there could be a decent reversal of form at a 20-1 morning line. The 1 and 6 are morning line shocks. I'm in agreement with Mike that the 6 is more of a use than a 1. Obviously, you can use your own discretion if you really want to try and beat a favorite. I mean, you probably could beat the 6 here, but also I very well could see the 6 getting home. The only other horse I really looked at was Artisan to the inside of Shots Fired. Shots Fired, even looking at his Century Downs lines, I just don't like that he sticks around and leaves. He never really gains. And over a track like Century Mile, I didn't really have confidence that he would be firing in the stretch, while a horse like Artisan, you see that he's making at the track on 2, he's making these moves to pass horses late. And maybe if he just kind of lays back, takes one run, pardon the use of run, he might be able to, find something to do well inside of this race. And at 6-1 could be a little bit of an interesting price, but really, I am more interested in this 5 as a 20-1 morning line than I probably should be when betting a pick 4 ticket. Like, there's part of me that I would just think to single him, with just how little of an opinion I have on many of the other horses, which, I mean, hey, if you want to be gutsy, and that ticket cashes, do you know how freaking baller you would look? Singling a 20-1 morning line that cashes, you would become the legend of your OTB. They would name a holiday after you there.
I'm not sure about that, but it certainly would be impressive. Anyway, if you're keying 20-1 morning lines and they win, that's always something to talk about. But that last race is very wide open. You especially get those 5 claimers going after each other. Trip matters, but who's feeling good on the day matters too. And the prices, I think are a little bit incidental.
Well, that does it for this discussion of Century Mile Pick 4. Century Mile Racing Fridays and Saturdays, Saturday afternoon post time. I believe it's around 12 p.m. Mountain, so you're going to be looking at 2 p.m. Eastern. They're going to be at Century Mile for the upcoming months, while Century Downs hosts Thoroughbreds. And then next week, we're going to have action from the Red Mile. Kentucky Futurity is next Sunday, the final leg of Trotting's Triple Crown. If you can believe there is still a Trotting Triple Crown. Yeah, I even have to remind myself every few years that Marion Marauder was a great reminder that there is, in fact, a Trotting Triple Crown. And of course, Mike, from there, we have Breeders' Crown right around the corner up at Woodbine Mohawk Park. So still plenty of great harness action to come on the thoroughbred side here on the In the Money Media Network. Of course, I know you, PTF, and the whole crew gearing up for a huge sprint to the Breeders' Cup, October 31st, November 1st. If that whets your fancy, we're going to have plenty of action there on the flat side. And of course, on ITM Plus, there's going to be a great deal from what I hear too for Breeders' Cup and Keeneland, if you're a harness guy who happens to also like betting thoroughbreds. But that does it for us here on the Harness Players Podcast. We'll be back next week with some action from the Red Mile. And like PTF says, may all of your photos come out in your favor so you can make money.